What's your greatest, most satisfying Icalledit moment? Before we start, be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. Comment your answer below. When a penny stock I bought around 0.03 share blew up to over 3. My only regret is not buying a lot more shares. Dude at work had been complaining about his crazy girlfriend and her problems. 2 weeks later he is talking about how she is pregnant. In my head I'm thinking, she is going to lose the baby because it isn't real. Sure enough, he comes in all sad about just over 2 more weeks later saying she had a miscarriage. Some time passed and he's complaining about her crazy antics again. My wife and I went to Red Lobster one day. My wife likes the shrimp and lobster pasta with parmesan cheese. They sat her plate down, she got a weird look on her face. She told me it smelled weird, it smelled normal to me. I straight up asked her if she could be pregnant. Her eyes got wide as she starts doing some math in her head. We went afterwards and got a pregnancy test. Sure enough, she didn't even know yet. All because I remember some random tidbit about some foods smelling off to pregnant women. Obviously not the most satisfying. But watching Family Feud and correctly calling the last answer makes me feel accomplished. I don't care if they are up 28-3. They are the Falcons. They'll blow it somehow. When my brother and sister-in-law planned a trip home for Easter weekend, I told my wife and parents that they were coming to announce their pregnancy. Everyone told me I was crazy and they'd just use the family chat for that. Cue Easter lunch on Saturday and my sil refuses a glass of wine and everyone guesses she's pregnant. Called it. Following a car with its left turn signal on for 2 miles. The driver kept slowing at side streets as if to make a left turn, but didn't actually turn. I looked over at my daughter and said, "Watch, they'll make a right turn." Bleep called it. Yes, they were still signaling left when they made the right turn. One of the old coaches from the Chicago Bears is Mark Trestman. I told everyone that he would not make it to the 3rd year of his contract, he would get fired after the 2nd season. I made a $500 bet with my dad because I was that bleep sure. Soon as the news broke, I called him and told him I prefer cash over check. Drunkenly told my uncle's girlfriend she would be gone my Christmas at Thanksgiving. My uncle was a bit of a playboy and always had different semi-trashy women around. The best part is I didn't even know I said it 'cause alcoholism. I found out when my dad told me at Christmas she went into rehab and they broke up maybe a week before Christmas. Hey, you were right about what? Told my wife my cousin's marriage wouldn't last, they were way too happy, like upbeat, we never argue ever type happy, and never lived together, and wouldn't you know it, not even a year later they're getting divorced cause they couldn't stand each other. My cousin still says to this day you don't know someone till you've lived with them for at least a year. When I met my mom's husband's adult kids. After a few minutes of hanging out with them I followed my mum into the kitchen. Me, 3 of his 4 kids are gay? Mom, no. Only one is. Me, number 3 are. 10 years later. One of his children is in a same-sex marriage and 2 of his kids are living with long-time same-sex partners. My mom and sister used to be obsessed with John Kate +8 and I told them that they would end up getting divorced. When they announced the divorce my mom and sister were devastated, but I couldn't help rubbing it in their faces. Told my GF at the time that her best guy friend is into her. She kept saying she only saw him as her gay best friend and he only sees her as a sister. Well, she ended up cheating on me with him and they started dating after I broke up with her. I like to think I won that argument. My little brother proposed to a girl he was only dating for a year. I told him to get a prenup. He declined. She left him a little more than a month after the wedding. He said, "Are you going to say I told you so?" And I got to say I don't have to. The first Avengers movie, my husband was wondering why the staff could stop the almighty Tesseract. I casually said, "Maybe, they're both Infinity Stones." He said, "Nah, the Tesseract is its own thing." Because he was more into the comics at the time, I shrugged it off. Since then, every MacGuffin in the movies, down to Thor's Dark World, I jokingly said, Infinity Stone to troll him. You can imagine how pissed he's been since Guardians. Thanksgiving Day a year ago, not this past Thanksgiving, the one before, I was watching the parade on NBC, and when I saw Matt Lauer I told my family I bet he would be the next high-level guy to fall to the Me Too movement. I've read Page 6 for years and there were stories hinting at his bad behavior for years. Sure enough, a couple days later he was fired, no prior warning. It was a very satisfying moment. Ask me again after the Game of Thrones finale. When I was younger I was going to buy a TV. It was $350, my mum said to wait longer until my birthday, this was a week away BTW, I said mum it'll go up, next day went up $100 and she had to pay it. Watching Toy Story 3 for the first time, I just had a feeling that Lotso would be the villain. Ended up being right. One of the most evil Pixar villains, too. He had an opportunity for redemption and could have stopped the trash conveyor belt, and he totally didn't. Stone cold. Around 2002, a buddy and I were discussing cars. I predicted that in 5 years, Hyundai/Kia would be competitive with the domestic brands, and in 10 years they'd be gunning for the Japanese automakers. Health insurance companies quadrupling in value in 1 decade after the ACA passed would have been infinitely more satisfying if I had any way to take advantage of it. When the MMA fighter Ronda Rousey was undefeated and kicked the bleep out to everybody, I called Holly Holm knocking her out. I remember it like it was yesterday, boxing glove. Oldest sister was acting shady and parents were afraid she had gotten back with her criminal ex-boyfriend. I thought that was a possibility but after a while ruled it out. I told my BF that I wouldn't be surprised if she was dating a girl, and like a week later she told me she was dating a girl and was just too afraid to start bleep in the family, but hey, I bleep called it. Not sure if I can call it satisfying, but it's still a good one. In 2003 I wrote a thesis on mortgage-backed securities. The whole thing did not make sense to me and told my professor as much, but added, what do I know? I'm just a student and Wall Street guys must know what they're doing. And then 2008 happened. Apple slowing down speeds of older model phones every time a new operating system came out. Called that for years before they were forced to admit it. My family, why don't you have a Facebook? Me, privacy issues. Facebook has privacy scandal, again me called it. My wife and I have lots of these. We are watching through Criminal Minds together, and try to profile alongside the show, and see if we can beat them to any of their realizations. I told you he was a first responder. After George W. took the oath of office I turned off the TV, and said we'll be at war within a year. My parents' divorce. In 1999, I gave a talk in which I said, within about 3 years, more than half of the new internet-based companies will be bankrupt or merged. The moment Game of Thrones was announced as a TV series, I predicted that GRRM would stop writing books and that the show writers would jump the shark and the entire series would crash and burn. How I Met Your Mother, I called the finale after the first episode. Mother has died. Ted ends up with Robin in real time. Every left-leaning person in Brazil is very satisfied with their predictions, I would say. Called that Trump would win a year before the election. People laughed at me. Aunt bought a new Ford. I bet my cousin would crash it in a week. Guy made me 50 richer in 3 days. Someone I knew who was a die-hard Eagles fan passed away unexpectedly before the start of the 2017 season. As I left the wake I said to myself, bleep, I bet the Eagles win the Super Bowl this year. It was a shame he couldn't have seen it. It was pretty obvious that I would not enjoy working in a lab. I called it. Yet here I am, working in a lab. Saw Detective Pikachu last night and guessed the entire last half of the film, twists included, halfway through. Take that, children's entertainment. My niece getting pregnant at age 15. Once when I was 14, my friend who was also 14 to 15 took his dad's truck out to go drive it. He didn't have a license or anything, so he decided to blow a stop sign going about 45 miles per hour. I was in the passenger seat and saw headlights in the back. I look at him and say, I bet that's a cop. Lights turn on and next thing I know we are getting pulled over. I correctly predicted that two friends of mine were going to get married before either of them had even met each other. As far as I know, they were both single, had both just taken teaching jobs that happened to be at the same school, and I thought to myself, yeah, that's gonna happen. Wife gave our 3-year-old a milkshake in the back seat. I told her that milkshake was going all over her car and she insisted it wouldn't happen. It was extra satisfying because I didn't have to clean it up. I figured out Jon Snow's whole deal after reading the first few paragraphs of the section he's introduced in Icalledit. When my sister broke up with her BF, called it, he was a racist. My podcast co-host being pregnant. She finally revealed it to me this week and I told her yay. I am so excited. Also, totally called that when you quit caffeine for dry January and never picked it back up. Trump 2016 election. You have been visited by Sad Cat. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to make Sad Cat happy again.